Hi, welcome back to Joe Blogs. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about a really interesting development between the USA, Venezuela, and El Salvador. And if you follow the channel, you'll know that we cover all three of those countries. They've all got really interesting leaders. We've got Donald Trump in the USA. We've got Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. And Venezuela is the country with the largest oil reserves in the world, significantly more than the USA and Russia added together. However, it's not doing very well at the moment because of the severe sanctions that are in place against Venezuela, both by the USA and most of the rest of the West, because they claim that Nicolas Maduro rigged the presidential elections, that they weren't a fair and honest election process. He denies that, obviously. And in El Salvador, we've got President Nayib Bukele, and he's quite a young, popular guy, and he's been on a one-man mission to destroy the gangs in El Salvador. And since he took over as the president, he's been really successful in terms of getting a lot of those gangsters off the streets. And where most of them have gone is to his mega prison. I've posted a couple of videos looking at that mega prison. If you haven't seen them, check them out. It is absolutely incredible. It's a huge prison that they built in the middle of nowhere. It is heavily fortified, and you have all of the gang members that have been sent there, and they are held in cells of up to 100 prisoners per cell. And in those cells, they have 2 toilets. So that obviously isn't going to be a very pleasant trip to the toilet by anybody. But Nayib Bukele has basically said that he's got a no-tolerance policy for all of these gangs. He wants to bring law and order back to the streets of El Salvador. And through this, he's actually offered President Trump the opportunity to take prisoners from the USA that he's looking to deport, because Trump has said on multiple occasions that he doesn't just want to send gang leaders and known gang members back to the country of origin because they might not be able to hold them and they then could return to the USA. So Nayib Bukele has said, send them to me, I'll put them in my mega prison alongside all of the El Salvadorian gang members, and everyone's a winner. He'll obviously be paid for that, a small amount, he says. And what we've seen over the course of the past few days is a really interesting development in terms of Venezuelan gang members that were being held in US prisons. On the 15th of March, Donald Trump announced that he was invoking the 1798 Alien Enemies Act to deport 238 gang members from Venezuela. This document posted by the White House says, Tren de Aragua is a designated foreign terrorist organisation with thousands of members, many of whom have unlawfully infiltrated the United States and are conducting irregular warfare and undertaking hostile actions against the United States. TDA operates in conjunction with Cartel de los Soles, the Nicolas Maduro regime-sponsored narco-terrorism enterprise based in Venezuela, and commits brutal crimes including murders, kidnappings, extortions, and human, drug and weapons trafficking. TDA is engaged in and continues to engage in mass illegal migration to the United States to further its objectives of harming United States citizens, undermining public safety, and supporting the Maduro regime's goal of destabilizing democratic nations in the Americas, including the United States. As President of the United States and Commander-in-Chief, it is my solemn duty to protect the American people from the devastating effects of this invasion. Now, therefore, I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, by the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including the Alien Enemies Act, hereby proclaim and direct as follows. I find and declare that TDA is perpetrating, attempting, and threatening an invasion or predatory incursion against the territory of the United States. TDA is undertaking hostile actions and conducting irregular warfare against the territory of the United States, both directly and at the direction, clandestine or otherwise, of the Maduro regime in Venezuela. I make these findings using the full extent of my authority to conduct the nation's foreign affairs under the Constitution. Based on these findings, I proclaim that all Venezuelan citizens 14 years of age or older who are members of TDA are within the United States and are not actually naturalized or lawfully permanent residents of the United States are liable to be apprehended, restrained, secured, and removed as alien enemies. I further find and declare that all such members of TDA are, by virtue of their membership of that organisation, chargeable with actual hostility against the United States. The document goes on to say that alien enemies shall be subject to removal to any such location as may be directed by the officers responsible for the execution of these regulations consistent with applicable law. Following on from that publication, it was announced that a plane would be taking off for El Salvador, carrying 238 Venezuelan gang members, and that those gang members would be sent to the mega prison in El Salvador under the agreement between Donald Trump and Nayib Bukele. Now, this raised a lot of questions as to whether or not this was genuinely an act of war.
There's no question in our mind that the law is being violated. It has only been used 3 times in our country's history, all during declared wars, the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II. And the reason for that is very straightforward. The law says explicitly it may only be used against a foreign government or a foreign nation when we are in a declared war with that foreign government or that foreign government is invading us. This gang is not invading, so in our view, there is no question that this administration is just thumbing their nose at Congress.
And it was subsequently announced that later in the day, on March the 15th, a US district judge, James Boasberg, had ordered that the deportation be halted for a period of 14 days. However, reportedly the plane was already in the air when this judgment was made, and Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, on the 16th of March, posted this on X, which is a headline from the New York Post saying federal judge orders deportation flights carrying alleged Venezuelan gangbangers to return to US. And in response to this, Nayib Bukele said, "Oopsie, too late," with a laughing face emoji. He then released a more serious post saying, "Today, the first 238 members of the Venezuelan crime organization, Tren de Aragua, arrived in our country. They were immediately transferred to SECOT, the Terrorism Confinement Center, for a period of 1 year, renewable. The United States will pay a very low fee for them, but a high one for us. Over time, these actions, combined with the production already being generated by more than 40,000 inmates engaged in various workshops and labour under the Zero Idleness Programme, will help make our prisons self-sustainable. As of today, it costs $200 million per year." On this occasion, the US also sent to us 23 MS-13 members wanted by Salvadorian justice, including 2 ringleaders. One of them is a member of the criminal organisation's higher structure. This will help us finalise intelligence gathering and go after the last remnants of MS-13, including its former and new members, money, weapons, drugs, hideouts, collaborators and sponsors. As always, we continue advancing in the fight against organised crime, but this time we are also helping our allies, making our prison system self-sustainable and obtaining vital intelligence to make our country an even safer place, all in a single action. May God bless El Salvador and may God bless the United States. And as you can see from this footage that Nayib Bukele posted on X showing the transfer of these 238 Venezuelan gang leaders, El Salvador has a very high security approach to transferring prisoners. There are a lot of people from the army who are sent to get hold of these prisoners and to transfer them. You can see that the prisoners themselves have been transferred wearing white t-shirts and white shorts, which is what everybody wears in the El Salvador prison itself. And also there are a lot of tattoos on display, and you can see that they're showing some of the tattoos from the gang members who are coming on this flight. Now you can see one of these guys has very long hair here. He's obviously been allowed to grow his hair long in a US prison or detention center. However, that isn't allowed in El Salvador, and you'll see later in this video footage that all of these guys have their heads shaved when they get to the prison. So that's actually come under a lot of criticism from human rights campaigners, saying that it's barbaric and it's a throwback to detention centres and concentration camps and those sorts of things. But Nayib Bukele is basically taking a zero tolerance approach with dealing with all of these gang members. He says that he's taking them off the streets to make El Salvador a safer place. Now, obviously, these particular gang members that are being transported in this footage, and you can see the cavalcade here, how many vehicles are actually involved in this is incredible. The level of security that El Salvador are throwing at this. And they're going to this high security prison, which, as I said earlier, if you haven't seen the footage that I posted previously, which gives you an inside view of what's going on in that prison, it is definitely worth checking it out because it is quite frightening, but also they've got a lot of gang members to deal with, so I guess they needed to come up with something that would be able to handle all of them and have the capacity to take everybody without causing major problems. But you can see the way these prisoners are being transferred, that they're not being allowed anything at all, so you can't have a beard or any facial hair whatsoever. So when you arrive, if you've got hair, it's going to be shaved off, and that's basically putting everybody back to the same position where they're all going to have crew cuts and white t-shirts and shorts. And I think they're all given Crocs as well. Their shoes are taken off them and they're given plastic waterproof shoes. But you can see everybody is being treated the same. This is quite a brutal process. I don't think anybody would want to switch places with these guys. But Nayib Bukele has posted this footage, so I thought it was worth sharing it with you just to show the sort of how these people are being dealt with in El Salvador and the sort of conditions that they're going to have to survive in. You can see the cells themselves. They hold up to 100 prisoners. So they're in these bunk beds that are stacked up high, and they have 2 toilets between them. So quite a brutal living condition. So what's the summary and conclusion today? Well, I wanted to post this video because I think what's happening at the moment in the USA is really quite interesting in terms of Donald Trump's zero tolerance approach to deportation. He's signing off on all sorts of different deportations at the moment. Lots of different nationalities are coming into scrutiny. They're being deported. And Venezuela has been a country that we've been talking about a lot. And I recently posted a video talking about the fact that potentially up to 600,000 Venezuelans who are currently in the USA may find themselves being deported. Now, Donald Trump has accelerated the deportation of what he sees as gang members who are now undertaking a war against the USA. He signed this 1798 Act, which is over 225 years old. And as we saw earlier in the video, it's only actually been enacted a few times before in the US's history, and that's when it was actually at war with another country. But Donald Trump is saying that the war on drugs and the war on gangs is a real war, and therefore he's entitled to deport these Venezuelan gang members. And it's really interesting, I think, that El Salvador is offering to take these people and put them into its high security jail, because clearly El Salvador wants to form closer relationships with the USA. So it's doing this. The USA will pay for those prisoners to be housed there. But ultimately, I think El Salvador is doing a favour to the USA here, and I'm sure there will be some form of trade in terms of some benefit to the economy of El Salvador at some point in the future. But I wanted to share with you the footage and what's gone on here, because things are going at a very fast pace. Donald Trump hasn't actually been in power for that long, but he's done a lot in that short space of time. And deporting these gang members under this 200-year-old law and sending them to El Salvador to a prison there is really not something we've seen any other president in the United States do before. So I thought it was interesting. I thought you'd be interested in having a look at that footage. And hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. You found it useful, informative, and thought-provoking. If you've liked what I've said, then please give me a thumbs up. Thank you for watching this video all the way through to the end. And here's something to put a smile on your face.